This isn't planning and zoning, we start these meetings on time, Mark.
You're right there.
If you didn't recognize me, you sound like my old wrestling coach. If you got, yeah, 15
I'm gonna
minutes
get the
early.
look here in a minute. So, all right.
Sorry about that.
It's 8 o'clock. Let's call the April 18th, 2024 meeting of the Sherburne County EDA to order. I would be looking for an approval of the agenda for the day.
I'll go ahead. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Have a motion?
I'll second.
Laura's in on a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And opposed. And approval of the meeting minutes from last month.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
And opposed. All right, up first, we have the comprehensive housing study kickoff meeting. Who's queuing this one up?
Again. So we have Matt Mullins here. He's gonna walk us through a presentation and our kickoff meeting to our comprehensive housing study. And then following that, we'll have just a little discussion on some topics that have come up with the group. So, take it away.
Good, thanks, Jessica. Well, good morning, everyone. Actually, I've got one right here. Let's see. So, I'm going to slide up first here. I was spent a few minutes kind of going through the process of the housing study and some questions, but later, in a few minutes, we're going to get on our phones. We're going to try to do some interactive things and ask you some questions about housing and things of that nature. So, I'm going to come back to this slide in a minute or two, but just want to throw it up right now so you can kind of see your options, right? Lots of options. Text, QR code, website, whatnot. All right. So we'll could be here again. I think last time I was here was like day before Christmas or something. December 23rd, we had that last meeting, and we kind of talked about housing and some of the options, and here we are in April. So feels the same though, right? The winter was so mild and no snow. So this morning I want to take some time and just kind of talk about the process a little bit and some of the data request needs from the local city officials. I want to spend the bulk of our time this morning just kind of giving you some questions and talking about some of the hot topics and things you want to dive into during the course of the housing study. So we'll come back to this slide in a few minutes so you can get those QR codes again. So I'll give you another second or two and we'll move on here. All right. So again, there's our agenda this morning. Just want to kind of talk about big picture, right? So last go around was 2019-ish into early 2020 when we did this work. And we all know what happened, right? The real estate market. So through the pandemic and whatnot, a lot of things have changed in the housing market, and we'll touch on some of those this morning. But a couple things. So we did this work in 2019, which would have been in early 2020, kind of pre-2020 census stuff, right? So 2020 census came out, and it was kind of, as you know, everything in 2020 went down, right? So it's not great. 2020 census numbers still aren't out, and the question is how valid are they going to be? So a lot of our work is just projections and estimates based on, building trends, what's happening in the economy, whatever, because we're not really going to rely on 2020 census numbers to, project things. And lots happened. I think the biggest thing today is going to be underwriting and interest rates. We'll talk about that, but a lot has happened in the real estate market, and I have a good slide that kind of shows you how things have changed over the course of the past couple of years. So last go around, this is what we did for the 2020 study. We broke the county up into 7 submarkets across 7 geographies. And our intention was to keep this the same for comparison purposes, right? So we can kind of compare and contrast. Now, if there's a reason we shouldn't, let's talk about that and discuss if we need to move anything around. Like maybe people think, you know what, let's kind of move some things around in Northwest submarket or up in there. But I feel pretty good about these. I think they're a pretty good description of how we break things down. But want to have a discussion if you think we should change it, now's the time. Otherwise, I think we feel pretty confident that we will kind of roll with it and compare and contrast which the numbers we had back in 2020. So, if things pop up, you want to talk about that, let me know. Otherwise, we'll just kind of roll with it. All right. So, looking at what's happened over the past couple of years, this is big picture, right? Looking at your permit activity. 20 and 21 were great years, right? We had low interest rates, and then as interest rates hikes went into place in the Federal Reserve, we really see, how construction went. We're doing 400 plus single family, then boom, see this trend of going down the past 2 years. And a lot of that is just because of the interest rates, right? I mean, a lot of the builders in this market are not national builders, and national builders are offering incentives and buy downs and rates, whereas the local builders can't afford to buy down points. Hence, you're not seeing the production levels in the new construction market. We had certainly some good multifamily that's popped up, but that's going to really decline in the interim, at least next 2 years. Multifamily, the brakes that put on pretty hard due to lending and underwriting criteria that's out there today. So we'll touch on that in a second.
I got a question.
Yep.
How does this compare to historical though? Because the problem is, starting with 20 and 21 as your baseline, of course it's going to look bad. But how does this trend of rate compare to 2010 through 2019?
Well, I've got all those numbers. I don't have them with me right now, so I could show you. But no, I just wanted to show you COVID pandemic times to now, where we're at today. That's the whole point of the slide, not to show historic. But I do have all that, so we'll show you that long term. Sorry, a previous study has it all the way up to 2020.
Okay.
I can't recall what those numbers are. So,
I have a question.
yep, go ahead, yep.
When you're looking at the building permits, are you just pulling it from our county permits, or are you pulling it from the cities?
Well, a lot of different ways, great question. So this right here, I pulled late last night, so it's from the census. And thought different sources, right? Census Bureau. In theory, every city is supposed to send the permits into the census. So it's supposed to be 1-to-1. However, it's not always the case.
But you're gonna check that when we do
We'll
our
do that.
study.
We'll talk about that later this morning.
Yeah, and we do have a couple townships do their own as well.
Yep, so then, we'll ask for all those permits.
Okay,
Good question.
thank you.
Yep, so, I'm looking at housing prices and sales, okay, back to interest rates now. Just a couple quick, comparisons where we're at today versus 2020 and then 2015. So obviously prices have gone up a lot, right? And I'd say you're on par with pretty much everywhere else around the state of Minnesota as far as pricing. You're averaging 10% per year since 2020. That's pretty much on par with what we're seeing across the state. But the biggest factor we have right here going on, so 2020, right? 1,800 single-family homes sold, right? 2023, 1,000. That's pretty crazy, right? That's just a serious decline in activity. It's just because of supply, lack of supply, and the golden handcuffs of people with low mortgage rates who are not selling and holding back supply. And of course, rising rates that affect buyers who are not buying today. So major shift in the for sale market. So that's the biggest challenge today is the supply issue and getting homes in the market. All right, just like a couple quick high level concepts as we go forward. Now we're going to talk about the housing study. I always say that I want to summarize the process. I would say it's three things. Number one, it's based on the current market conditions, your current housing stock. What's your need today? Step one, what's your need? Step two is once we've established that need, how are you as elected officials, stakeholders, can help implement the findings, whether it's your comp plan, making decisions at City Hall. And three, it's really a marketing piece. Help stimulate the housing market, streamline the process, and get things done. A lot of other reasons we do these things, but again, the marketing piece, having it ready for lenders, underwriters, helps stimulate the housing market. All right. Similar to the last work we did, touching on all these topics, about a dozen topics. I won't go into all these right now. Key is we're diving into these product types, right? The rental market, for sale market, and the senior housing market. All price points across all service levels. It's what the deep dive is. And as far as timing on this study, we're just getting things kicked off. We got the contract back in the door in February, so we're right on track right now with getting started. So, anticipating, probably an early fall wrap up, September-ish, based on getting started right now. By August, September-ish, for a draft report. At that time, we'll come out, do some formal presentations or whatever. However you want to do that, whether it's board, out to the community, it's a discussion we're going to have down the road once things have kind of been wrapped up and how you want to unveil the final product. So we can have that conversation, closer to the delivery date. All right, now the fun part. Got through some of the high level stuff. Want to talk housing. All right, so here again, there's that website, there's that QR code, and has everyone gotten this far yet? Got to a page that says like, a website.
Did you?
Yep, you got it, perfect, yep, that's what you want, yep, perfect, all right, good deal. New technology here, so let's hope it works, right? Works so far pretty well, other presentations I've done, so that's, nice part is get just-in-time results, and we can save all the findings, so it's pretty nice. Give it another 10 seconds here, and then we'll move on. All right. We have any problems so far? All right, we're good? All right, let's hit it. All right, let's make sure it works. Question 1. T-Wolves start the playoffs this weekend. 19 years. Kevin Garnett years was the last time we actually had a playoff win. Where are we going to end up this year? I know my 2 cents. We'll see how everyone responds. This is our gimme question to make sure it works. So far, a lot of first rounders, conference. Let's see if I can go down on this, show it as well. Yeah, I'm with you. I hope they can get out of the first round, but we'll see.
You switched our question.
There you go. So everyone thinks we're
Still pondering over there, Jessica?
still.
No. I was.
Yeah, so the first round, that's how I kind of feel, right? I mean, they got tough at first round. They've had our number 0-4 against our opponent. All right, okay, so it works. It works for everyone. Perfect. All right, next one's a pretty easy one. Where do you call home? Where's your place of residence? Just gotta type it in so you get a feel for where everyone's from. All right, so I got a good mix here. Got a lot of township folks, people in larger cities. We had Maple Grove in there, Big Lake. I see a Sauk Rapids.
In both worlds.
I have dual citizenship.
Okay.
Many properties.
Dual citizenship.
Everyone? Okay, it's a good mix of folks from rural, small towns, communities, suburban. Okay, good, all right. So, this is a question I like to ask, I go across the state is, how much are you in back in the office, if at all, or hybrid, or what? Because it varies significantly. Out of some cities, in rural Minnesota towns, where 2020 hit, everyone's back in the office, even in like April 2020. I go to other cities, and it's fully remote in the more urban cities. So it's just all across the board versus urban, rural, and whatnot. So just always curious where that falls, because it certainly impacts housing. As we look at housing markets and mobility trends, and mobility trends are driving the housing markets. And we've certainly seen this ex-urban movement out of urban cores to more affordable markets. The number one driver for housing the past 3-4 years since the COVID pandemic has been affordability and people moving out of the core, to the right counties, the Sherburne counties, Chisago counties, across the border to Wisconsin. The fastest growing counties this past year has been Pine County, up 35W. Granted, it's a small county, the percent change, but it's been 2022 to 23 was the fastest growing county in Minnesota, which is crazy to think Little Pine County.
Because 2 people moved in or what?
Yeah, more than 2, but no. You got Hinckley, I guess, I don't know if casinos driving them or what, but
I was just at a meeting there yesterday, and they had a employer that, the man who owns it grew up there, and then he left and had his business, his BP Metals, down towards the cities, and he picked up his whole company and moved back and brought like 30 people with him.
oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that would have really increased that.
Very
That's a
interesting.
percentage,
As a
probably,
percent
of
change,
the
that's
county.
major, right? That's a major change for Hinckley, that area, right? So, okay, so we have let's see if I can get this bottom one to show up here. So yeah, good mix here. Remote to, oops, did not let me adjust it down here. All right. Okay, this is the big question here. So when the year kicked off, Wall Street and investors, I think some of them were crazy, they were thinking 5 or 6 rate cuts for the year. I said, no way, that's never gonna happen. The Fed came out and said, well, we may do 3 rate cuts. But this persistent inflation is hanging around. And the CPI numbers came out last week, were not good, they're up again. So these interest rates and the Fed is what's driving the market today for all things real estate. As we look forward, just curious where you all thinking we're gonna end up. The tone has changed a lot through the year, and higher for longer seems to be the talking point today. So I think it'll be 1. I agree. I think it's gonna be 1 rate cut this year. I think we're gonna see 1 late part of the year, and it's gonna be after the election. The Fed's not gonna do anything prior to the election, I don't think. My 2 cents. But it's higher for longer is gonna affect real estate lending and all things new construction related this year. So the tone has certainly changed as the year has progressed on that. Okay. Back to interest rates. If you're a homeowner, where are you sitting today? This is for our homeowners in the room today. To talk about the golden handcuffs, this is it, right? A lot of people in the 3s. Yeah, that's great. People under 3.
My screen didn't change.
Did you?
Refresh.
Get what? Refresh? Up here?
Or on the side and pulled it down if we
I
get out.
tried to before, and it made me
The one inside the slide?
I know I tried to push it and it went forward on me every time. I can't see the bottom. I'll share these slides with everyone when we're done and on all the results. But as of right now, we have 80% under sub 4%. No one in this room is sitting at 7% today. The going rate is actually the going rate today is over 7. Went up again like this past week to like just over 7. So, we have a couple in 6% range, okay?
I'd put in under 3 if I could.
Okay. I got refinanced twice during the pandemic. Just in those little times, because rates kept going down, down, down. I mean, it's free money, right? So, it's a huge difference in affordability. So, the bulk of us are sitting under 4. And it's tough to sell your home. You're sitting at that rate today. Move somewhere else. Okay, good. Okay, let's talk about your community, where you live, your township. What's your gut say? How do you feel? Do you feel your, overall appearance is good, excellent, has code issues, maintenance issues? Just what's your initial reaction?
What do you mean by appearance? Very specifically.
I'm sorry?
What do you mean by appearance?
It's overall your gut. You go in your town, you feel good about it, right? Do you feel like it has good curb appeal? Does it, you feel people maintain their properties? Do you feel it has a sense of belonging, community?
I think the housing you drive by looks nice.
Just kind of your gut check, right? And you go through some towns, you instantly have a good feeling, sometimes you don't, right? What good
Depends on the part of town, though.
That's true, right? Overall appearance, we're talking about, overall appearance. Okay, that's good. I mean, good results are something, some cities I go in, they got major code issues, deference, enforcement issues, and just lack of housing stock, so it's real positive, so that's good to see.
Lack of enforcing codes.
That's a big issue, right? A lot of towns, that's an issue.
My property, my right to do what I want with it.
Okay,
What time you say that?
all right.
This is on our calendar.
This is the toughest question I'm gonna give you today. From a standpoint of what you have to do in this now, you have to kind of move it around. You gotta touch it and move it, okay? So we're trying to rank what the needs are by your community. So you grab it and move up or down based on the product type you think has the highest need versus the low. And maybe all of them, right? But just try to rank them accordingly based on what you feel has that the gap in the marketplace.
Can you do all of them?
Well, you can move them all around. I agree. Sometimes it's like, yes, they're all important, no question. Just try to rank them.
Rank them, okay, first, got it.
Well, so far, entry-level single family is in first.
Is there such a thing anymore?
That's a good question. There isn't. I mean, entry-level single-family home price has gone off all the roof, right? I mean, how much market here? It could be 350 these days, 400. I mean, it's skyrocketed what those prices have come up to. Okay, so we have association maintain kind of hovering second. We'll see how things come up. But again, I'll share all these results. We'll see everything. Every time I try to click that bar, it just clicks the next slide. I'll share these results and we get them all back. Seniors making its way up. Oh, single family executive took it.
Some of these senior housing facilities they're building are ridiculous. The size of them and like a complex. I've seen
Senior, make senior housing facilities work a lot of times, they go big.
Yeah.
They don't do like independent living, assisted living, memory care, so you have a huge campus. But senior living has some big challenges today, i.e. number one being staffing.
Yeah.
So what's happened, we have a staffing problem everywhere, but especially in this industry, let's face it, the wages are crap, don't pay good wages, and it's tough to find people to do that job. What's happening now is we're seeing supplies being cut, i.e. the inventory. So say a building's licensed for 100 units, hypothetically, let's make it up. They may say, you know what, we don't have the staff today, we're cutting it down to 75. We're gonna cut our capacity down. We do not have the staff to even take in any more seniors. The major, major problem in the industry today is the labor and staffing issues at these senior facilities. Hence what's happened right now, there's nothing in across the state of Minnesota today, there's very little in the pipeline for any senior housing with services. There's product in the pipeline for independent living or active adults, which is very few services, but no one wants to hire staff. So you've had
And
this.
it doesn't help when the county poaches away a great manager.
I was like, where did that happen?
Oh, yeah, I wonder.
That's like, yeah.
She caught a shot on it. No, but seniors are fascinating industry, because on paper,
Fair enough.
the demand is there, right? The demographics are there. But we just have this mismatch now between construction and demand because it's just this labor problem. We'll sort of dive into that senior housing market and see where we're at. But we're just kind of touch on it. Occupancies are still not back to pre-COVID levels. We're still sitting, depending on which property, maybe 90%, give or take. We need to be at 95%.
Start building.
It's still not. All right, so good answers there. Again, I'll show these answers with everyone when we're done here. Okay, let's talk about incentives. Just curious, does your city or your organization have programs, policies, incentives to offer to developers, investors, or whatnot who want to build in your community? I know this is a topic that you talked about back in December when we initially had that initial conversation. You had a meeting, right, to discuss this type of thing. So here's to see if anything's happened yet. So, honestly, all right, good.
And even in, for the county, also, a lot of our cities don't have those kinds of incentives. They do for industrial and commercial build, but not for housing.
Okay. Well, another hot topic we have today, related to some degree, is how much property do you rezone from commercial industrial to housing? There's been a big push recently for multifamily to come in and take a prime piece of real estate in town that may have been commercial industrial and convert it to multifamily. This has become a hot topic I'm dealing with on a number of cities right now. Is where do you draw the line between let's hold this for future retail, let's hold it for future businesses, versus having a multifamily user come in and throw up a 50-unit building.
It's also where the demand is though, and that might have been sitting there for 20 years.
It could have been,
Commercial,
right,
industrial, and
exactly.
Multifamily comes in and says yeah.
And we've had a couple of those.
Mhm.
So it's coming up a lot in city councils right now I'm dealing with is you got a prime piece of real estate, it's like, do you hold it or not? So something to think about. So right now the answer is no, and more is coming, I see. All right, okay. Good. Okay, recruitment retention. You talk to employers across the county, what's their pulse, right? Is the housing stock impeding the ability to recruit, retain staff? All right, so consensus is yes, right? So not surprised at all. I think we did the work last time in 2020. Same results. It's a problem, major problem. Businesses have jobs, a lot of openings, and supply is not there. So we'll touch on this certainly throughout the report, but it's a hot topic for businesses as they want to expand and retain staff. All right? With that for now. All right. If you could approve one thing for housing stock in your community, what would you want to do? If just one thing, top priority, could approve just one item. What do you want to address? So inventory and supply seems to be the overall theme thus far. Affordability with that goes hand in hand. Lot supply, that's a major issue. Certainly have a need for senior. Our inventory. Well, available lots has popped up a number of times. Certainly, we're going to be addressing that issue, right, of available lots. How many vacant developed lots do we have available for new construction? So that's a big item that we'll be addressing. What is our lot supply, and is it enough to meet future housing demand? Because ideally, in fact, that earlier slide, we've seen how many homes we're doing, say 450 a year, give or take, single family. So if we have 450 single family homes being built a year, in a perfect world, I'd want 2,500 vacant lots, shovel ready to go to meet future demand, just based on that kind of level of construction.
And that's where we're at right now. We've got a lot of available land that is just sitting waiting to be platted. And bought and platted.
Okay, so I'd say 2,500 lots. I'm talking platted, infrastructure in place, curb and gutter, shovel ready, built, ready to build. That process takes time, right? 18 months, 24, 36 months, depending on approval process, landowners, timeframes. Certainly a major hurdle that needs to overcome to meet that future demand. So inventory was certainly, I think, our number one theme, affordability, lot supply. Okay, good, all right. Well, not good, but those are good answers there. All right, so last topic before we move on is, what do you guys want to dig into? I mean, what are your other hot topic issues that you want to address through the course of the housing analysis? What's other water cooler topics that people are talking about across town that are related to the housing market that needs to be discussed? All right, another few seconds here. I see a lot of fees are coming up. Permit fees, lot fees, development costs, infrastructure costs, okay? I know we talked about that briefly back in December when we met, just regarding fees. Building permit fees, infrastructure fees. Is there a overall thought that the fee structures are vary a lot between cities across the county?
We had the housing summit in November,
Okay.
and that was something several developers mentioned,
Okay.
that it's much more expensive to build in one community versus
Okay.
another.
And the problem would be what the infrastructure costs, like the sewer and water in each community. You can't compare it. It isn't an apple to an apple. Because other cities, when they develop their sewer and water, have a greater tax base or a big person that's helping to offset that cost. And other cities might not have that, so
Okay.
it falls more to the ratepayers. So it's very hard to pigeon that.
Right, so, do you by chance have a summary of that housing summit, like, did you guys take?
I have.
Okay, yeah, I would love to see that. Yeah, I mean, perfect, we'd love to see that and see the results. So a lot of development costs, infrastructure costs, permit fees, lot sizes, that's a big conversation today. They're being compressed, they have to be due to affordability issues.
I'd be really interested in a deep dive into what's driving, we make some assumptions on what's driving costs up. I'd really like a data-based approach on what is driving the median costs of homes up, broken down by, what's the top as it works its way down.
Yeah,
And the example, I mean, I've heard a statistic nationwide that as housing prices have increased, pretty dramatically compared to inflation, if you normalize that for square footage, it follows inflation. And so part of the driver for the lack of affordability as house is building bigger houses. And I'd like to know if that's true.
yeah, well,
Not quality,
Yeah.
just bigger houses.
We did have this trend of bigger to recently, now reversed again. We're trying to see smaller and smaller again because of affordability. And another reason why bigger and bigger got big, the supply of townhomes and condos has gone like this. So single family's been dominating, and of course, single family homes are bigger and bigger than townhomes and condos. That's been driving up the overall square footage as well. But it has kind of peaked again, now it's starting to slowly decline, but no question about it, it's gone up a lot over the past 20 years. You've certainly seen that square footage get larger and larger. I do have stats. I've got breakdowns of a typical cost of a house. Here's your land costs, plumbing, mechanical, whatever, by year, and you'll see where all these costs are going up. They're going up a lot of categories. I mean, everything's gone up, right?
It'd just be helpful,
By category.
I think it'd just be helpful to understand that. It's a data point. It doesn't necessarily drive an action, but it would be helpful to understand, I think. The other thing that I put in there that I think it would be really good to understand is kind of a deep dive on the decision-making process of homeowners, on how they're making their decision and what's driving their decisions. And granted, it's wide, but on where they're building their homes. What are the key things they're looking at? Because that could drive then some actions.
Yeah, a lot of variables in that one. Yeah, but no, good question though. Good question, yeah. Other comments, topics?
I was gonna say, like, for infrastructure costs, back in, and we're gonna go back to when the housing market tanked, and my community decided to cut all the fees in half. Sack and whack in half, your permitting costs for what the employees did to process your plan, figuring that, wow, they're really gonna come as long as the gates are open. It did manage to have one developer that was sitting on some lots already. He did decide to build out, but nobody else came to buy anything and build. which is not what we were hoping to have happen.
Did he sell out then or not?
He did, yes, yeah.
How big was it?
It was one of the, western end, developments. I think he had 24 lots left to finish before the housing market tanked. And then he did finish them out, and they did sell. But nobody else came in, and that was what we were hoping would happen.
Todd, I know you had some things you wanted included. Did we hit the nail on that?
Yeah. Back to where I was at. I lost it. One thing that I think as far as, I don't have that list again here, but, one thing I was thinking about was, so really you gotta get your inventory up to get the prices down. But it would be interesting to know, like, the people who own the 20 acres, cause I just recently purchased a couple properties, but these people are 90, 95 years old. How much turnover is that gonna be? How old are these people that own the big pieces in the county? So you can kind of judge. I mean, obviously you're gonna be able to judge like when that's gonna be coming available
Yeah.
by their ages, right?
Yep. As a real estate investor, that's a great thing to know, right? I guess it's very tough to get at that. I mean, I can figure out your ownership structure. I guess, how do you just think it out loud now. How do you cross-reference that owner against their age, right? So, I just don't know a way that I can figure out that owner, right? You almost have to find another database solution to figure out, what type of household type they are and their age. That's challenging.
Yeah.
Ownership structure I can figure out.
What about demographics, in using census data for the different breakups of the community? So in that first map that you showed, you had kind of the breakdowns of, the Big Lake, Livonia, Zimmerman, breaking down demographics in those areas, because some parts of the county, from the comprehensive plan are older than others. Is there any way to kind of extract that down to maybe those subcategories, so you can kind of see where the age, because I would imagine when you look at the eastern part of Sherburne County, it's going to be a younger demographics, because that's where our single-family homes went. But then as you go to the northern and as you push out to the west, you're going to start seeing maybe older demographics in those areas. It sheds a little light on who owns out there.
We'll be doing that, right, breaking each community down by demographics, right? Whether millennials, Gen X, silent generation, Gen Z, or whatnot. So we're breaking that down. But getting it to the parcel level, I just don't know any source that we can do that without putting, some serious other databases to link that. You'd have to have some kind of I'll take an example, U of M. I just worked for U of M recently. They know everything about you, right? And it's sad, right? They know if you're right or left-handed, where you invest your money. They're purchasing 50 different databases for every alumni for the University of Minnesota. They can cross-reference you, so they know how to target you individually to donate back to the university. They know your age. They know your marital status. They know everything about you. But they're purchasing those databases to make that happen. It's very interesting.
Funny that you would say that, because I have 2 U of M grads.
Okay.
She's been getting randomly weird,
Okay.
to my house that, invest or do, whatever. So that's funny that.
Well, because over there one day, they have 50 employees, is all they do. They have a 3-story office building, and all they do is chase alumni and get you to do that. But they purchase those data, they purchase everything to cross-reference you across all these different things. It's just fascinating. Well, that's a very valid point. I just don't know.
The biology major gets more than the psychology major, which
Yeah.
is fun.
Interesting.
And I would like to too find out kind of Todd, for example, and getting communities and cities especially to wrap their heads around, you're gonna have to get housing closer together for these developers to pencil their project. And there's a pushback to that, because you come out here for a little more space. Don't come out here to be on top of each other. But yet developers are needing more density on that parcel.
But I don't know that that's true anymore. I mean, that's the assumption that we always make, is that people come out to someone like Sherburne County for more space. I don't know if that's still true.
But I'm
That's a-
talking about some of the decision makers sitting at the table.
Well, I know, but my point is that, oh, yeah, right, so that's still their perception. That gets back to my question around understanding the buying decision. What's driving homeowners to purchase in a specific location? Because that then becomes actionable, things that we can do from a zoning standpoint, from a platting standpoint, you know.
Because I've
those
always
sort of
felt,
things.
I've always looked at, a developer knows what his market is. And he knows what to build to get the purchase. And so if you don't trust that thought process,
Well, and that's, I always joke that if you have land and you have a for sale sign, it's not gonna sell, because developers are already going to that property owner, knocking on the door going, I want your land. So if you see a big sign that says land for development, it's not happening, because it's not gonna, not right now.
No, you're right, they're out scouring, knocking at a farmer's door, you know.
Well, that's just it, a lot of our parcels now are older generational farmers that their kids don't want the land. They live in the cities, so then.
that's the for sale sign hangs there forever,
Yeah.
years.
Yep,
So another farmer buys it.
exactly.
Solar farm. You know, I think one thing that Sherburne County, and what I've heard out of this group too, is, you know, there's a diversity of communities in Sherburne County, and kind of understanding what's driving those different communities. We heard a little bit about, you know, fees per individual community. So the hope is the housing study will provide a little insight what it looks like in developing in Sherburne County. And the diversity of communities, what I'm talking about is kind of that city kind of limits, and then you get to the, you know, kind of suburban, and then you get to true rural parts of Sherburne County. And a breakdown of what is occurring out in those areas and what needs to happen in those areas. Because I think there is a mix. I think there are people who are coming out here for more space. They want a more rural lifestyle. But then there's plenty of people that just need a place to live, and they're looking for a nice community to land. And as you drive through Becker and Big Lake, you see the improvements that they're making. You're seeing that it's a good place to raise a family.
Well, a lot of calls we get in the zoning office is, but can I get an accessory building on this property? I'm moving from.
ADUs, right?
No, ADUs don't even get started.
Okay, all right.
Every day calls.
Well, there's a lot of legislation happening right now. You talk big picture. I got shot down last week about local jurisdiction and how much zoning, you know, for the multifamily properties, should the state pass statewide ordinances now that override local jurisdictions. So I think that's to come back next year again. So we'll see where that conversation goes. I mean, there's a lot happening with that right now. But ADUs are top, you know, I won't get it now, but that's a hot one as well.
Yeah.
But no, good point. But I think, yeah, certainly you have a very, very diverse housing stock. You got rural, ag, suburban, real cities, certainly a lot of different factors at play. It's, you know, cities are so different, right? So.
Because this will be a useful document for all those communities. So if we go back to a township, that they still see value in this document. If we go to a city with this, you know, document, that they see value in it. The 2020 study, I saw a lot of value in it. It was a great catalyst when I was doing some of the work for the comprehensive plan. And the hope is that this, you know, study can actually provide that incentive for those elected officials, for those, you know, administrators who are sitting in those other communities too, to be a useful tool.
Well, I'm
Right,
sure
they
it's a
would say.
unique thing too, because we have the metro area and we have St. Cloud. And it depends on where people work. If they're in Elk River, Big Lake, they work in the cities. If they live up Clear Lake, Becker, they're in St. Cloud, and it's just kind of vice versa. So it's a unique demographic.
Oh, you're right in the middle, right?
Yeah.
You're right.
Which is a great selling point.
Well, I want to keep these things moving. I know you guys have other things on your agenda today. I want to talk about one other quick thing. You know, I'll show these results to everyone, summarize them all. We're going to skip all this because I just have backup questions. So next steps, we'll be getting in touch with all city staff, county staff, et cetera, to figure out, you know, early question, building permits, right? We want to get straight up building permits from each individual city township. Building permit records, you know, plan proposed projects in the pipeline, right? Talk rental ordinances, that's one of our discussion right now. We won't talk about that right now. All those things on the left side, what I get at, your GIS staff, right? I get in touch with GIS staff and get our shape files and all that going, build out our property database and whatnot. So we'll be getting in touch with, a lot of city, county staff, et cetera. And the second part of it is on the right side there, we'll want to get a point of contact for each community. And then with that, if each community has contacts for us, local realtors, property managers, Convention and Visitors Bureau, whatever that is, right? Who are key stakeholders in that town that we should be talking to? So we'll want to get that list going. I mean, I've got a list from 2020. I'm not sure how much turnover there is, but I mean, I've got my master list from that last job, but we'll just kind of want to update that for, change, turnover, and whatnot. To get that list going. And so what we'll do then is, with all the various jurisdictions, city, county staff, I'll put a cloud-based service together. We share docs, whether that's city docs, county docs, whatever. Then we can share those documents so that, some of those can get pretty big files, especially for GIS, assessor database, and whatnot. So I'll get that going this week here and share that out. So we covered a lot of ground. Again, I'll share those slides so you have those answers everyone had. I guess either of you ask me the questions. Again, I'll respect your time. I know you have other things on your agenda today, so.
One thing I saw on your interview request, I saw realtors, but I didn't see on there, like, for example, with the realtors, will you also then get contacts for recent home buyers to help understand how they make their decision?
Not recent home buyers, no. That's,
Why not?
number one, I'm gonna track them down, number one. That's, you have a lot of, you get fair housing issues and all that. I mean, to do that, I think, I have to rescope this out, it'd be a lot of work. I mean, to go after recent transactions, I mean, that'd be an excessive amount of.
Well, I guess my concern is, and maybe you can ferret it out by talking to the realtors. So the realtors may be able to ferret out, once again, what are people looking for? How are they making their buying decision? What's driving that? So maybe you can get that from the realtors. I guess my concern is it's one step removed from the actual decision, and it puts their bias in it as well a little bit. But I mean, maybe you can figure it out that way.
Yeah, I mean, the only person that does that, the National Association of Realtors does an annual survey across the whole USA where they're able to survey random home buyers and sellers across the country to get some feedback on decision-making process, distance you moved from your previous home. That's the only organization that does that type of work, and it's macro level national. So
Is that something that they publish?
yes, yep. Annual report, profile home buyers and sellers, just came out 2 weeks ago.
Could they go into why they bought there and how long they plan on being there?
Well, they go into things like tenure, like how long were you in your previous place of residence, how long do you plan to stay here, what was your interest rate you paid on your house, what was your primary factor for moving, why did you sell, to be close to a job, this is a family. Those, that's available, but I think at the micro level, it's just, that's a challenging.
Yeah, but maybe looking at that study, if they publish it, that's something that we could look at too. Might get some macro trends.
How long will the study take?
The study right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hoping for like late August, September, having a draft, and then we'll come back and.
Couldn't you have something like when they do their homestead form to fill out? Basically all those questions. When people are buying and.
Say that again now?
So when you buy a house, you go and homestead it, you could hand them the form, hey, would you fill out the survey?
What's something that we could gather
We
individually
could get
over
the
time?
information from that maybe, and include it in the study.
It's electronic right now when they apply for homestead. So we'd have to think about how we could get that out.
Fill out the study. before you can get yours.
You can always do that.
Fill this out
Get what
before you
you need
get your
first and then
homestead.
give them.
That's an interesting idea, though, no, that's, yeah, I mean, the only other option would be to somehow go through tax records, find out transactions, and then target those home buyers and sellers, and then somehow hit them with some kind of a, survey or whatnot.
Because it would be interesting, because like you're saying, when I was looking at like starter homes, Rogers, Elk River, I think a starter home in Rogers was actually less than what you could buy one in Elk River for right now. And they were all pretty comparable, like going to Zimmerman, even the Princeton was only, but, like a 2x4 is gonna cost the same, whether it's built in Princeton or Rogers, right?
Yeah, that's the cost of the house, It's
Right.
not gonna try, I mean, it's.
I don't wanna be the guy that crashes the party, but we
You guys got-
are way beyond time.
Yeah, I'm sorry, okay.
I just wanna make sure, because there's 2 developers that are sitting at our table that make some of these decisions. Do you think we're on the right track? Are we hitting all the points we wanna dive into or get information back from?
I think the biggest thing is you're gonna have to sell it to the townships. I mean, however you do it, it's gonna have to get them to change their mind. I think you touched on that before.
Well, yeah.
Get us every possible piece of data you can regarding housing in Sherburne County through any resource you want. We don't care. I don't need to see your list or your resources. Hopefully you can't even confide in us on those because they're somewhat illegal. Get us that information for us to do our job. I think that's the presentation.
There we go.
He'll always get it right down to the.
All right.
Just wait up.
Yeah.
Say, whoa, wait a minute.
All right, but seriously, depending on who's talking on the planning, this could really,
We'll go,
Okay, well, thank you all, we'll be in touch.
we're gonna build off what
Yes,
he's.
all right. Thanks all, I'm serious.
Thank you.
thank you.
All right, thank you.
No, seriously, this is a great segue for what he just went over, because we're just gonna go quickly into what he just talked about in what townships.
Yeah, I just had to be cognitive, because if you're giving the presentation, I only have to allow half the time.
Ouch,
If
Mark.
was-
Ouch.
Wow.
I'll do my best.
That's actually a compliment to Mark, so be careful.
All right, floor is yours unless you wanna lead in
Nope.
on
Go
this.
for it. Keep it rolling.
All right, let's go quick. Planning and zoning office, we got the building, environmental, office administration, solid waste, and zoning. Those are, so it's one office, but obviously it's diverse. Here's our staff. Lynn is our zoning administrator. Mark is the assistant zoning administrator. We've had some turnover, but we are still moving forward, making things happen. We did get a new permitting system. I don't know if Ken has used it, or if he's listening right now.
Have you used it?
So we did an interactive online.
The new online permitting process. He's like, no.
It's still an option coming in, Cheryl.
Well, Ken will
He's
still
gonna
be,
be in your face walking the door.
he'll still be at the
I
counter.
think everybody knows how I feel.
Yes.
Fair.
We have gotten positive feedback. I was dealing with a septic designer who said those are nightmare programs outside. He's had bad experience. He said he sat down with a cup of coffee, ready to insert his 2 septic permits, and he was done like that. He said other communities, it's been kind of a nightmare. It's a cool collaborative project. GIS department out of Public Works really assisted us. So I think on the user end, it's working really well. On our end, internally, we have some bugs, and it hasn't really sped things up for us, but I think we can continue to.
Cheryl's been getting some incomplete applications in where she has to kind of go back and forth, like, I need a site plan, I need this, I need that, and so for our end, we'll get there,
I
but.
think it is a win though.
It's,
Some of the people have given
You
us
know,
positive
it's
feedback.
part of reality and something we all accept, and yes, most of the problems with permitting is on us, the builders, not doing our job, so
Thank you for taking responsibility.
you're welcome.
Todd, have you used it yet?
No,
No,
yet?
we have not.
It sounds like you soon will be.
Probably.
My lack of
With your
planning
property, you
is,
just
my lack of planning is always your
purchase.
emergency.
No, but it's been good, but that's just, it's for the permitting, but people like, hey, come check out my property, or it's like, no. So it's one of those things where we gotta fine tune it. It's new, it's exciting, but yeah, there's some things we gotta get taken care of. Here's just some quick platted and unplatted acres. As you can see, acres annexed in Becker, that's a lot, 192 acres. Big Lake's just 2, none in Livonia. So, and then you can see platted lots. Plats recorded in 2023, Baldwin 7, Becker 5, Big Lake 4. Again, Livonia's it's 0, and that was the driving, you know, in 2021, 22. But then you got Rock that has, you know, 1 plat, but 3 lots. So we get a lot of just people want 1 lot. They have, you know, they want it on a road. They don't want to put roads in. So we're seeing kind of that right now. We do have a new plat coming in Big Lake Township, 16 lots, roads. So Ziegler Custom Homes is doing that. Subdivisions, as you can see, the trends that the previous presentation just showed, 18, 19, 20, 21, those are going good. 22, 23, not so much, but 22 is when Baldwin, middle 22 is when Baldwin started doing their own zoning. So, you know, they were doing a lot of plats up there at the time. And so we'll see a decline in plats, but we still have Livonia, Big Lake Township, Orac is kind of leading the way with permits too. The subdivisions, as you can see, 8 subdivisions, 17 new lots, that's where we get into the inventory. It's not there. But our developers are our local investors. You know, they're the local business owners that want to develop. We don't have nationals. We don't have developers like we used to back in the day where that's all they did. We have people that say, I run this business, but I want to plat off 20 lots. And hopefully the builders will come and build on them. So, I mean, that's just it. We're sitting here going, oh, the inventory's not there, but we're depending on people that want to stick their neck out and go get loans and go get, you know, all the financing. I mean, so we're hoping that our local business owners want to do that.
Question, does Clear Lake and Livonia do the same thing as Palmer, where Palmer, I know, 20, 30 years ago, can only do 40 acre?
Yeah, it's very restrictive up in that area in the egg. I mean, you have to, if you can plat in the egg, go get a lottery ticket, because it's very.
I don't pay attention if Clear Lake and Livonia are in the same, they do the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's an agricultural, so
Yeah.
Clear Lake Township, Palmer Township.
But that's by their desire.
Correct,
Yeah,
oh no, I know that, yeah.
They want to keep it rural and farm.
That's why they're all 0s.
What we're seeing a lot of those are they want to split off the old farmstead, so they still want to plat, so that's why we see some weird lot lines going, because it's following the ag fields, and so people are like, and we've worked with them, because we have very strict restrictions on platting. You have to have, you know, 40,000 square feet of 3 feet above modeled soils, so on and so forth. Where we realize up in that area, it's a very high water table, and we're not gonna limit them wanting to do that, so we're just saying, if you have an existing house, just show us that you can get another alternate septic, you know, drain field out there, and then you're able to do that.
But Livonia does allow 2.5 acre development. That was one of our big townships, but we're not seeing any plats coming out of Livonia right now.
Which is interesting,
A bunch of land in Livonia was sold for solar, and it's hundreds of acres. So we'd like to see more plats in Livonia.
And on that 2.28 or whatever for the annex from Big Lake,
Yep.
that was just to clean up some stuff that did not
And it's,
get done on prior annexation.
and it's like cargo, you know,
That's what it
they'll
was.
snatch them up and move over, so.
I just want to make sure we're not just taking too much.
Well, that was a discussion at Livonia one time when Zimmerman, like, oh, are you just gonna let us, I was at a township meeting one time, like, oh, are you just gonna let us take us over? And Sheldon goes, they've already taken like 80 acres from us. It's like, we can't stop them, so.
Yeah, I'm just curious on septic. Yeah, are these all individual septic these days?
Yep.
Or there's no
Clusters.
clusters, okay.
We don't ever want to see another
Clusters
cluster
are
again.
cringy.
Well, that's what I was asking.
I think the failure rate on cluster septics is 100% right now. I mean, if they're not, they're failing. I mean, because people,
They don't
You-
understand it.
they don't understand it. I mean, you live on city sewer and water, you flush it, you drain, it goes away. Same thing with clusters. They're not, unless you have your own tank on your
Right.
property, that's, some of them do that. But again, they don't care, you know, grease goes down the drain. I mean, they don't understand what you can and cannot put down. But if they flush it and it goes off, away from their property, they don't care, and so clusters are,
Until all of a sudden the system fails.
until the system fails and it's $1 million,
Because
and then you.
nobody is paying attention
Yeah.
to the system.
Well, and the state's changing the rules too. They've gotten a lot more restrictive on those clusters and they have to meet a much higher, clean water requirements. And now all of a
wells-
sudden they're failing, so.
Is there any technology change that, you know, I know that IBS just, I think it was this week or last week, International Builders Show. Are there any technology trends that we're seeing that would facilitate more rural developments?
What we're hearing is more barn dominium houses. People are wanting to build shed houses. We're hearing that a lot more than we ever have before. And it's always a new name that's like, what's the new term this
Yeah,
year?
the barn dominium.
Barn
Barn
dominium,
dominium
shells,
is the new one,
yeah, they get the, yeah, they hear a term, they call us, and we have to be like, oh, you mean this? 'Cause first time I started in 2017, they called, I was Googling barn dominium, you know, while I was on the phone.
It sounds cool.
But it comes down to, and that's where our answer is, okay, well, where do you wanna build? Well, I wanna be in a residential development. Okay, well, it probably won't work because there's covenants, there's restrictions, there's architectural standards. Well, okay, well, if that question is, I wanna build a barn dominium, where do you want? I have 40 acres in Ori, go ahead, have fun. You know, it's what, but they gotta have engineered plans. So there's a lot more that goes into it.
That's the difference we're seeing.
Yep. There's just a population that we have, obviously Elk River is leading the way. You know, now Elk River's in its own league. I mean, you got Sherburne County, but Elk River it's always just been its own kind of thing with population and housing and, again, it's the proximity to the cities.
And they have some of the national builders too. I believe.
National builders, that's just it. We
They're
just,
coming.
well, we have a plat going in Big Lake Township and we did a stub road. And some realtor was reaching out, like, hey, what's going on here? And we thought, oh, another developer is gonna come in. Well, once I saw the name of the person that was inquiring, where they were from, D.R. Horton, I'm like, not happening. Because they don't want sewer and water, or they want sewer and water, they don't want individual septics and wells. They just wanna go in, boom, 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 go out. Because they need more bang for their buck. They want the higher density of housing closer together. 2.5 acres isn't gonna work for them. That's why we appreciate our local businessmen or persons that want to develop in the
But
county.
if they're in Elk River, they are gonna ripple out here at some point.
Someday. Yeah, it's probably just that transition of, okay, I live in Elk River, I wanna go get some more acreage, or I wanna, do one of those things. I was in
just
private
know.
development, it's one of those things back in the day before the housing crash, you could do a 20-lot development in a city. It might take 5-10 years to build it out. You do a township development, that was done in less than a year. There's some numbers for new home permits, obviously Baldwin, we'll go through quick, septic systems, I mean, they're Oroc's 25 new homes, that's more or less the new development that went in by the hamlet, and then Shores of Eagle Lake. J.P. Brooks has been putting a lot in, but there are another.
The nice thing with those data, that's countywide, so cities are reporting into our office administrator, Carrie Winter.
Yep.
So you get the city numbers with this kind of annual reporting. Dan's utilized it, on a regular basis. We are tracking this stuff, and we have a long history of these reports, so it's kind of, when the consultant does need that data, we have a lot of it readily available for them.
It's very consistent, it's the same thing every year, so it's easy to look at the different changes. For example, on the septic upgrades, numbers are down because you're not seeing houses sell like they were a few years ago, so the septic upgrades aren't happening as much.
You mentioned the Shores of Eagle. Are they almost to build out?
Almost.
And that development it's taken that development, 25 years or so to actually get to being built out? And they are one of the ones that has one of these cluster.
Yep.
And they've had issues along the way, and they probably will actually have some really big issues coming
I've talked to
with what they have out there.
I've talked to the property owner that lives right next to the septic, and he said the alarms goes off all the time.
Yeah, nobody's watching it.
Sorry.
Mark and I looked it up yesterday, there's 4 lots left to be built on in that development, it was a 100-lot development.
And that's another developer where we talked to him and said, hey, you should do some lots in the township. And they said, nope, I don't wanna do individual septics and wells, just.
And one additional interesting thing about JP Brooks that I kind of brought to my attention, I haven't been looking at permits all that closely for the years, but they're smaller lots, so they're substantial, so they're, what are they, quarter to 4/10 of an acre, somewhere in there, so small lot.
0.6 acres, yeah.
I was gonna say half, yeah.
And what's happening is they're still maxing out the houses out there, so they're not getting smaller houses just because they're smaller lots. The houses are equivalent to house, you know, you just did a 5-bedroom out there.
Well, they're
on
over $600,000 houses
Yep.
now.
Yeah, so it's, and I heard, you know, you had talked about once, you know, just because you make smaller lots doesn't mean that they're gonna build more affordable houses there, they're just gonna, you know, so that's that balance that we have to be paying attention to as we go forward with regulations, how do we manage the affordability of homes.
Yeah, and then I think, do they even pay into, is there like a fee?
We're gonna start managing the affordability of homes.
Association.
How are we gonna pull that off?
I think they're at over $200 a month on that for their septic, their well, and their association.
That makes you feel a little bit better, they might have some funds to actually address an issue.
Well, and that's what a lot of the problem was, we're back, the cluster developments back in the day were more entry level, so these people were barely getting in and they weren't paying any association fees. Where when you saw the higher end cluster developments with the higher, you know, priced homes, those people can afford, you know, the extra $200-300 a month in association to keep up those, septics.
And the shores of Eagle Lake isn't a really good example that, development had a lot of, different lives through the years.
Oh, yes.
And, so the 25-year span to build out really isn't, something to draw from.
It's had a lot of stops and starts.
Yeah,
Which was due to market.
no,
No.
it's just due to Bill Simonis.
Oh, you remember that name?
So naming.
They came out of Chicago and then, yeah, it's
so-
gone through a number of people.
So I wouldn't draw too many conclusions from that. I do applaud JB Brooks for coming in, and they do a great job of taking some very difficult properties and making them work where other builders can't.
And we've seen JP and Becker and Orrock and I think.
And a lot of times they're on those properties that nobody else can make work, so they definitely serve our market that way.
And they were the perfect builder to go into that.
But it will be nice to see it get a period put on it. Be done.
Okay, so obviously new home constructions, we've seen for the townships, has gone up and down, but we're down right now, again, due to inventory and interest rates. Other building permits, you'll see in 2022, that was in thanks to the storm that came through in June. I mean, we couldn't keep up with the demand for siding and roofing from that hailstorm. It was, watching
Insane.
Cheryl and watching our building department go was amazing, because they were just coming in and, like, every day, boom, boom, boom.
And 2023 is carryover
Yeah.
still from the storms the year before.
And, you know, and with insurance, it takes a while for them to get their claims and fight with them, and then obviously they'll
Well,
come back.
then to find someone to do it.
Yep. Well, that's the problem with a lot of our nonconformities. You have 180 days to rebuild. Well, you're not gonna get insurance.
Or find
know,
a
so
person to take the project.
And that's a state, you know, regulation, so it's kinda tough for us to be like, well, I just got my insurance check. I'm sorry, it's been a year. I'm like, sorry. Commercial building permits, we're down to 6. Those are probably more, mini storages. What do you think, Mark? Mini storages?
We had a couple, Snake's Corner got a new building, and there's a couple commercial buildings that went up, but that's not our, kind of our strong suit.
No.
You know, commercial development in the township is not a real common occurrence. We deal with more of the small businesses, which we'll get to in a second.
Here's our septics that Lynn was talking about, new and upgraded. So we get a lot of these where people just, it's either property transfers or they want to do improvements to their property and have to have a septic compliance or a new septic within the last 10 years. So that's the first thing we ask people. We don't want them to come in with a building permit. So my big thing is they say, I want to get an accessory building. I'm going right to their septic record. I don't want them, I'm going to say, okay, here's what you can do, here's the setbacks. However, you do need a septic compliance because it's been over 10 years. So I don't want them to wait. I'd rather just let them know then them apply and then like, oh, by the way, you need a septic compliance. Because we'll tell them, if it fails, here's what happens. So your $20,000 building might go 40,000.
Well, and don't you also have the ability to pick out if they're gonna add a couple of bedrooms, but the, system was only designed for 3 and they wanna increase it to 5, you know there's gonna be an issue
So,
right away.
and that's the thing is right now, the state's telling us that, okay, it's not in our ordinance, we can't require them, but we can let them know, like, hey, if you're going from 3 to 5, your septic's designed for this, but we can't make you do it. We do wanna get that in our ordinance where they are required to upgrade it per the bedroom, so it's just saving them. I mean, we care, I'm like, why do we care more about the septics than they do? You know, it's not
They
coming
don't
out of.
understand them.
I know, and that's just it, it's one of those things where we just wanna inform them and educate them on what they actually have.
We
Most-
never had bedrooms, we only had offices.
That's right.
Then how you get around that, an office with a window and a closet?
It's a bookshelf.
See?
A lot of work from home stuff going on.
Yeah.
You're good.
3 offices in that home, I swear to God.
You're good.
Yeah, we see too many of the, Ken's plans come in, why is there 3 offices and 2 bedrooms? We do have
It does
our,
end up costing them more in the long run if we don't make sure they have adequate stuff, just saying.
He just being
I
funny.
know.
I think with our SSTS program, people talk about, the ability to have septic systems in rural areas. There's a lot of checks and balances on these systems. And when, there's a safety factor, you're managing your waste treatment on your property. And through those compliances, we ensure that these systems continue to function, years in the future. So
When we do-
transfers, building permits, people push back on that a little bit, but that's really a protection for the, groundwater that we all rely on.
and with our fines, in sand, I mean, you go to septic class, they're basically calling out Sherburne. Like, we have higher standards for our fine sand. You have to have the pressurized system, you have to have breaks in the drain fields, so it's not just going through this, the sand.
So there's a lot of
quick
incorporation,
rate.
industry standards, they're trying to be pushed to make sure that these septic systems are safe and, long-term.
Well,
So-
and I know it might sound silly, but when you got the majority of the people that are possibly coming out from a metro area that is
Yeah.
used to watch through city services, I don't think it's probably outrageous to have a pamphlet.
We do an education, so when they
To
actually move,
educate them,
yeah, so
yeah.
it's part of our education
It'll
program.
save
that
a
we
lot
do.
of stuff in the future if they
Every
understand
new
what they're dealing
homeowner gets a
with.
letter. Everybody that buys a piece of property on a shoreline gets a letter.
You
We've
guys
been
have
doing that
always
for
provided
years.
that.
We're looking to beef that up too and find better ways to communicate that message, because not everyone's gonna sit and read a full page, so can we get better graphics and maybe more?
And,
A
you
little
know,
TikTok video, and then they'll get
There
it.
we go.
and with the cost of septics, we do have a loan program, so.
One thing to be careful of, though, we were just talking about this, because I don't remember ever getting a letter when I built my house on the lake.
Well, you're in the city. Anything in the township, we take care of.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I guess the point I was gonna make, when you close on a house, just remember, you get a shitload of paper.
Yep.
And most of it goes straight in the trash.
Yeah.
You're right, I
Or
forget
above
about
the,
that.
above the fridge, and you don't look at it forever.
It's still sitting there 20 years later when you sell the
We don't
house.
get the list from the auditor's office until the end of the month, and then by the time we get that letter out, it's about a month after they've moved in probably.
Okay, so it
But
comes
it is a way
separately?
to try to contact them and make them aware of some of those issues.
And let us not forget, there is such a thing called homeowner responsibility.
True.
So it doesn't fall on,
But they're not used to.
well, maybe they should be used to that before they buy it,
Well, you're not wrong, but common sense isn't common either.
No.
Well,
We're trying to bring it back.
Unfortunately, we cannot pass enough ordinances or laws to overcome stupid, so let's not try.
You can't fix stupid.
Not even with duct tape.
If you're gonna go buy something with a septic system, you probably should understand a septic system. If you don't, yep, you're gonna get that education eventually,
The hard way.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. But I think we're just trying to be proactive because it creates such a headache when it has to be reactive, and
You're
that's,
just nice people.
I,
All right, CUPs and IUPs, so.
Yep, this is
two
where we-
things I love.
This is where we, at the county, at the zoning office, work a lot with our property owners. CUPs, IUPs, a lot of times if you need a CUP in the commercial, it's probably Spanky's Corner, which requires it. A lot of these IUPs, though, they're home businesses, and these people just want to operate a business from their accessory building. So you'll see here, Big Lake has 5 IUPs, the 1 CUP was in Spanky's Corner. Clear Lake, 5 IUPs, those are all for solar farms. Livonia, 2 IUPs. These are all people, we are And this is where we get the connection with the EDA. I didn't even realize we had an EDA until one time somebody went for an interim use permit and got denied. Then Dan was down in the office going, hey, have them contact me. I'm like, why? He's like, because I can help him. And I'm like, oh, so we do work together. And so
Found a good spot for 'em.
Oh, yeah. That was a big one.
And that's when Mitch kind of got introduced, started to get that exposure crossover with economic development and.
Isometric was a good one, yep.
And to put a positive spin on an IUP, for example, we had the winery lady, and all of a sudden WJON picked it up, it made it in the local paper, and I'm like, well, this helps because all your neighbors are gonna know, anybody within a quarter mile, it's free advertising. And then the newspapers sometimes will pick it up, and it does help them with their business sometimes in the long run. So if you can put a positive spin on it, that helps.
And tonight at Planning Commission, we
I'm
have.
loving this room today.
Tonight at Planning Commission, we have 2 solar farms, one farm-related business up in Clear Lake, and then we have somebody that wants to run a salon out of an accessory building on their property in Orrock. So, I mean, shoot, a lady wants to leave a salon in Zimmerman and start her own business. So we're there to help and support them and, partner with them. Solar farms, obviously, they're all over in the West.
When I looked at that map yesterday as I was going through the packet, that really blew my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew things were happening, I did not know it was to that level in the county.
Well, these little ones are nothing compared to what Excel's doing.
Right.
Yeah, cause that's not even on there, right?
No, Excel's not on here at all, and it's very interesting now to drive up County Road 8 on the western side, and it really has changed a lot of that view shed.
But getting back to development, with the limited options for property owners to develop up there, that is their way of developing it.
Well, and there's a lot of incentives to do it too.
Yeah.
What's the average acreage per milliwatt, or for megawatt?
Well, 6 or 7,
6 or 7?
maybe as high as 8 in some cases.
We have some where they're either standalone, or we have some that have 3 or 4 of them on that same property.
Yeah,
And they are so confusing with the names, and oh my gosh,
they
they
sell
are.
crazy, but they're all LLCs and they're so inconsistent.
And they get transferred, so we'll go out and say, hey, you need to, replace this many dead trees. Oh, this person's taking care of it, or no, this person's taking care of it, so.
And it's very hard to do anything because these farmers are able to keep their land and bring in revenue that is greater than what their crop can do for them.
Do we have any way of knowing if all these small solar farms are being consolidated under ownership?
They have to keep the name that they come in with, they have to be registered with the Minnesota Secretary of State. When we do the escrow agreement with them, Tim Syme double checks to make sure all those things are there, that address is still at the state, that they are current, and so they have to keep that name. That's not to say they might not have 4 names and it's the same big company that owns them. That could very well be the case on a lot of these, but they have to keep that individual name and keep it registered with the Secretary of State.
Yeah, same thing with the development. They were up in 17, 18, 19, down, and got a couple. And here you go, Mark, be quick.
Yeah.
And we are running out of time, right?
No. All it is really comes down to is the partnership. This ended up in our comprehensive plan, and I really do value true partnerships and building real partnerships that actually move initiatives forward and move going forward. We have our policies. We don't have to go into all this stuff, but these are the policies that were adopted through our Sherburne County Comprehensive Plan. We adopted a policy strictly dealing with economic development, incorporated a lot of the strategic plan from economic development into our comprehensive plan. Some of the big things that we need to look at are accessory housing options, different types of housing. Really, that's kind of, I keep hearing that over and over again.
ADUs, we get called 3-4 times a week.
And our intent was to get to this a little bit earlier. You can just zip through these next couple slides.
Yep.
There's our economic development, back to policies, business industry along our highways, home extended businesses. So we're carrying out a lot of these things daily. The comprehensive plan gave us the policies to support it, and then gave us the strategies to kind of carry it through. And so this is the work that we're doing in our office. But right now, if we can go to the zoning ordinance, So right now, we're in the process of, back to the partnership. We're currently working on updating our mandated ordinances, and that would be septic, shoreline, and floodplain. And so those are state mandated ordinances where the state provides model ordinances and asks us to incorporate kind of changes and updates that they've done along the way. We're doing that right now. We're hoping to have this wrapped up, by March. We were, shooting to try and get these model ordinances to county board in April. But as we looked at it, there's a lot of definitions, a lot of things that kind of need to be checked or refined before we push it out, and that just takes a little more work. So we're wrapping that up right now. So hopefully county board will see those mandated ordinances in May, and then we will look to work with the consultant on the rewrite of the entire zoning ordinance. We have an RFP that will send up to the county attorney's office and probably seek some support to do the zoning ordinance. With the changes that we've had in the office, we do need some outside support working our way through that. Someone who would be a very good facilitator in updating the entirety of our zoning and subdivision ordinance, because we need some eyes from outside our community on our regulations.
So, appreciate it. All right, thanks. Well, we knew we were gonna be kind of short on time today, so, and there's a lot of good information here. I think what was contained in here is very vital to what we're trying to accomplish in EDA with the housing at this time, and the collaboration between planning and zoning is huge. I knew we wouldn't have a lot of time to really dive into this, so I'd like to really encourage everybody here to go through this. And then if we could ask you guys to come back in a month or two where we could maybe have a total meeting just to go through this, bounce ideas, get a feel, give any input that we can give towards zoning, things like that, I think would be a good way to approach.
Yeah, we can be back next month, further discussion on it.
All right, we do have to do a couple of items of business here, bylaws, do we need a vote on those?
Wow, they're up in the attorney's office right now, so that's all I was gonna give a quick update,
Okay.
that hopefully by next month we'll have those ready for approval, and I'll do a quick summary on them.
Pretty painless process,
Yep.
so, okay. Economic development update?
Yes,
Jessica?
you passed the letter of
Yeah, we got a
support
letter
for the
Oh,
workforce
that
housing
was,
project.
yeah, Freudian
We
slip
have to
there.
vote on that.
Sorry, those who don't know what I'm talking about. Yes, to consider the approval of the letter of support for the workforce housing with Mr. Pat Briggs.
Yep, so just very briefly, we had a request for a letter of support for a workforce housing project in Elk River. It's a 3-phase development that will bring new workforce housing units. Each phase will bring 40 units of workforce housing, of which 8 will be income restricted, for a total of 120 total units, and that'll help fill that need that we have for workforce housing. So.
Is this the second phase of his apartment complex just off of Jackson?
Jackson Hill Apartments, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, and he is applying to the workforce housing program through the state of Minnesota, which is what this letter would be. And he also does have several letters of support from local businesses who are requesting that housing because they need employees, so.
I think absolutely we should give our support to this project. I think the letter was well written, and I think it's gonna be more standard going forward as things are changing, that we do these things. So I'd look for a motion on this.
I'll make that motion.
Hands in,
Second.
all in favor,
Aye.
opposed?
Okay. Economic update, okay, I'll be brief for the sake of time. I just wanted to kind of cover our first quarter activities, so I'll just kind of blaze through this. This is laid out, kind of sectioned off in the same format of our strategic plan, the areas of focus. So business retention and expansion, so far we've logged 10 BR&E visits, and we have 6 more scheduled through the end of the month. So we'll be at 16, which will put us pretty well on track for 50 for the year. I'm just gonna throw that out there. Also under, well, I don't know why this is under business retention and expansion, but I must have just been writing with my thoughts. The city of Becker did post their RFP for a consultant. That was something that I've been working with the city of Becker on, and I drafted the main draft for this RFP. And that is to, they need a feasibility study for a business incubator in order to apply for the Economic Adjustments Assistance Grant, which is a federal grant. That's a requirement of that application. So that RFP is written, it's posted, and so that's a pretty exciting big deal moving forward in that federal grant application process that they'll be seeking.
Just before you get too far, I just want to make a comment that the Baldwin Township at the SCAT meeting last night is probably going to find out here in the next couple of months if their application to become a city is going to be granted, and they're pretty confident that it will. So
Okay.
that's just something that watch for that pretty soon. They probably will be the city of Baldwin.
Okay.
Township.
So the township will
City of
become the
Baldwin
city of
Township.
Baldwin. Is that what they're going to go with?
That's what they wanted.
Okay. I don't think you get to do both.
It's a good try.
You don't get to be a dual citizen. It's one or the other. Well, that's different.
So under workforce, again, a lot of this work has been through this Just Transition Fund grant that the city of Becker received. They have $150,000 to use to sponsor scholarships for entrepreneurs 16 and older to participate in the ILT Academy, which is entrepreneurial and business development. And so we have met with every school district, well, I should say high school, in the county. We've presented at several on our program to the high school students. Done some really cool, fun activities with them. We're targeting DECA, their business classes and their entrepreneurship classes. So that's how we're reaching our younger people, younger entrepreneurs. And then we're also, we've presented at several chambers. I talk about it at every chamber business meeting that I do go to as well. And then housing, obviously we got a lot of things going on with housing. We've had our kickoff meeting. We've done 2 workshops. The last one that we did was for builders and developers on April 18th. There was about 15 attendees, and that was really educational, I think, for the people that were there. And I've had some continuing conversations with developers after that. And then just a quick local housing trust fund update. I'm looking for feedback, and I think it'd be a good idea for us to ask our city economic and community development partners to just have a conversation with their councils, EDA, HRA, and to let them know that we are moving forward with a local housing trust fund to kind of get their feedback on that. From the cities in terms of what they're identifying their local housing needs as, so that we can consider that information moving forward with our local housing trust fund. So that's something that I'll be talking about at County Connect when I meet with those people.
We think we have seed money of about $450,000 to get that program up. So we will have a little pot to it.
Yeah, that's going a lot better than I personally expected, so good work.
And then also just engaging with the Minnesota Housing Partnership on that technical assistance. She did mention that they've done community engagement for local housing trust funds for other communities. I kind of feel like we've done some of that legwork with our housing summit and getting that feedback, but if you're interested in what more community engagement could look like, I can dive a little deeper into that, or if you think we're beyond that piece and moving forward with our connecting with our cities, councils, and EDAs and HRAs is sufficient.
Do we think that that's even happened for cities?
Not yet, no. That'll be a topic coming up at, like my County Connect meetings that I have right after this. Yep. But I mean, we've talked about the local housing trust fund. Our city partners definitely know that's something that we're working on. Okay. Policy review and update, some things we've accomplished there. We have had various department and commissioner updates, like I've done housing workshops with the county commission. We updated the tax abatement policy. We're currently working on the land transaction policy, and then the bylaws and enabling resolution is obviously under review right now. Broadband update.
Quick on the land transaction, we are going through every county-owned property, see if we still need it, and if not, if we should sell it. So that'll be coming to the board over the next couple months if there's any land we want to sell.
Perfect.
Okay.
We've had several ARPA broadband projects near completion. The county awarded $2.7 million in grants that led to an additional $5.2 million in private funding. The projects were spread over Becker, Blue Hill, Clear Lake, Haven, Livonia, Orac, and the city of Elk River. The work in childcare, the Rural Child Care Innovation Program with the city of Becker is in full swing. I'm a member of their core committee, or core team. We're actually having a provider appreciation event in Becker tonight that I'll be at later. So providers will come, they get a dinner, they're gonna get some CEU credits, which is required for them, and then just, we've got gift bags and all kinds of fun stuff to just show our appreciation for them.
One
And-
question just on that.
Yep.
I'm curious as to, when I seen it, I thought, way to go Becker.
Yep.
Really dive into this. Is there a reason why some of our other cities aren't
So
following suit?
my answer to that is I originally wanted to do the RCCIP program for Sherburne County. And I met with them on behalf of us. And their answer was that it's too big and that it really needs to be a city initiative. So this went to, I then brought the RCCIP program to my County Connect with my city economic and community developers and just introduced that idea, and whoever jumped on it. And Becker was one of them that did.
Becker's got a lot more funding available because of the energy transition, so they're eligible for a lot of grants that other cities aren't right now.
How do we feel that this possibly with that connection with Becker could share out into some of the other cities?
There are several, well, I shouldn't say several. The RCCI program is one that you apply for, and then you basically get an award of their time and skills to go through this whole process with your community. There's another organization called the Business of Childcare. They've got a different approach, and we're also talking about that at the County Connect meetings. That one's more of an economic development approach to childcare, and so I know that's piqued the interest of like Elk River. Not to say that they're moving forward with that, but I know definitely had more of an interest with the Business of Childcare. And
Well, you
so,
have to nowadays if you to have a workforce.
right. But I will also say too that I am starting a Sherburne County Child Care Advisory Group, and that will be representative across the county. Ken's like, really, another group? I saw the long blink. But the goal is to create a provider network. We do actually have a family provider and a center provider that's going to serve on our advisory board. We want to gather resources from like the Initiative Foundation, from Milestones, from other nonprofits that are for childcare, and really make sure that the providers in our region have access to and are getting those. We even talked about legislative platform through the chamber, because we do have chamber involvement in the child care advisory. Conduct child care BRNEs, and then we kind of decided in our advisory group that the staff capacity in the industry is an issue. It's when Matt was talking about senior housing and how there are senior housing buildings that are 75% capacity because of staffing, childcare facilities are the same thing. So we would like to focus our efforts more on how do we support increasing staff capacity versus standing up new childcare facilities. So that's something that we're talking about. And we have chamber, we have the United Way, we have city, county, Milestones, which is like the nonprofit that if you're starting a childcare business in the state of Minnesota, you go to Milestones.
I'd like
And
to see too focus on in-home
yep,
daycares, because what's preventing people from starting those up?
yep. So those are kind of the objective. We haven't even had our kickoff meeting to that group yet, so we're really just establishing like who's going to be in it and what our goals are. Federal designation, Dan, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I can give a more detailed update at the next meeting on both transportation and federal. I know we're short on time, or over time, so
Okay, Ken's almost out the door.
I know.
Oh, and I apologize for that, but I do have scheduled meetings at different parts of the, building, starting at 9:45.
Driver's license first.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't even know where the hell I'm going, so.
So we'll
But
put those
other-
on the agenda next.
That's pretty much it for
So then I would call for a motion to adjourn.
Second. Alright, I gotta go get my car keys.